You're listening to the Energy is Love podcast.
As I'm looking at this on the phone, I am beet red. Can you see that?
You're not beet red, but you're
I'm
red.
I'm red.
Oh, is it beet red in the camera?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just got home from jiu-jitsu. That's why I'm all sweaty and beet red.
Watch you flex.
Watch me flex. Is that a flex? I just do jiu-jitsu. I don't think that's a flex, is it?
No.
How you doing over there, baby?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm looking at your arms.
What about them? They're all red, huh?
You're just handsome.
Yeah. This podcast, we were off last week. So we didn't have a new episode last week. We were actually traveling for a funeral. My grandfather passed away and we had to go back home to California. Not back home. That's not where we're from, but it is home. So we went back to California to celebrate that man's great life, my grandfather's. And we had a wonderful time, even though it was definitely a difficult time. But yeah, that's why we didn't have a new episode last week, because we were kind of in the thick of all of that, trying to prepare. And I didn't think that it was one of the things on my list last week that I just let go.
Yeah.
Yeah. As we were getting ready for the trip, all the different things that I had to do. I wanted to record because I didn't want to miss a week.
Yeah.
But then it was like, oh, I'm just going to let that one go. So we didn't worry about it. But now we're back.
We're back.
We're here.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
What?
I have this thing.
I'm waiting for it. I feel like it's taken a really long time.
That I have been trying to, it is something that I wanted to share on the podcast for a long time. It's something I mentioned to you weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks ago.
The pressure of a memory.
And now I'm trying to go back and make sure that
I
get, you'll know in just a second. I'm totally going to sweat this entire episode.
You might. It's okay.
I just got out of the shower too. I should have taken a colder shower. Sorry, we're in a rush to get up here and record because we've got an empty house and we've got an opportunity to do this without any distraction. Here we go.
Got it?
So this episode of what it was a old episode. It's not that old. It's only like 2 months ago. Old episode of Joe Rogan. And
is it the one where he tells people that nerds wear glasses?
No.
No.
So on this episode, he had a doctor on. Her name is Shanna Swan. It's episode 1638 of the Joe Rogan Experience. So you should probably just go listen to that. Shanna Swan, this is just the intro for that episode.
Okay.
Is an environmental epidemiologist whose work examines the impact of chemical exposure on reproductive health and child development. She has a book called Countdown, which is available now. Do you remember, does that ring a bell at all about what I'm about to talk about?
No, but I'm looking and I'm trying to read her.
Don't look, I'll talk. It's
not telling me, you'll talk. Okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to.
So on this episode, that lady, Dr. Shanna Swan, she discusses a bunch of different stuff, obviously, because on Rogan they talk, for 3 hours. But the main thing that she talked about was...
It's something that made my brain go boom, huh?
Yes.
And I can't remember what it was. I blocked it.
It's plastics.
Okay, plastic. Oh, yeah.
So what she talked a great deal about was all the research that they've done as of late over the past however long. And this is just going to be a butchering of her great work and her information and everything that she does. But there's a reason why I want to talk about it, because I have a thought about it. So the idea is, and it's not even the idea, the fact is, back in like the 50s and 60s, we started using plastics in this country for fucking everything, right? Just everything. Plastic became a massive part of like our daily life in regards to pretty much everything. And there is some chemical in plastic. Obviously, there's a bunch of chemicals in plastic. But this one specific chemical that they've been studying, and I don't even remember what it's called. It's some chemical compound name that she references. I didn't bother to try to research it because you can just go listen to that episode.
You can.
But this chemical is responsible for affecting reproductive systems, specifically taints. And they have been able to measure taint size and determine.
What does taints have to do with reproductive systems?
So,
Like,
obviously, this woman is a doctor and she's super smart, and I am not a doctor. Okay. And it was, 2 months ago that I listened to this episode? That's how long it's been on my list of things to talk about on this podcast. We've had a couple of other things come up.
A few. I'm going to hold this ball while I figure out how.
Be careful. I don't know exactly what effect the size of taint has on reproductive, but the smaller the taint, the less sperm count there is.
So it's just a guy thing, or excuse me.
It's not just a guy thing.
Let me correct that. No. I said that wrong. I'll just say male. I don't know.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's the best I can do right now.
It affects both male and female reproductive organs differently.
Okay. So what does it do?
But one of the big main things that she is studying, and one of the big main research things that they've uncovered, is that it is leading to lower testosterone levels in men, lower taint size / testicle size.
Now it's humans.
Yes. Lower sperm counts, all of which are having a big effect on reproductive numbers. So we're not having as many babies as we used to have.
Okay.
And the men that are alive have smaller taints.
Smaller taints.
Yes.
How does one
measure a taint?
No, I
glad you
figured
asked.
that. Okay, sure.
We're going
That'll
to
be
demonstrate.
My first no.
That's why I have these playing cards. One
I'm
card
okay, I have
small
a legitimate
taint.
question.
2 cards is right size taint. So go ahead and stand up.
No.
What's your legitimate question?
Well, they're looking at reproductive, health and I guess productivity, and how all the systems. At what point are they I think these taints are different sizes. Let's see if.
Well, obviously it starts with mice.
How do they go to connect mice taints?
Mm-hmm. I mean,
again, how did they start to notice the size of the taints? I feel like I would have never have caught on to that.
Science and stuff, they measure everything. Taints, it's obviously they have a science name for the taint, right? But it's an
not
important,
taint one, taint the other.
No, it's an important measurement. And it's typically, and she talked a great deal about taints, but it's I think she's not only could they tell that taints were getting smaller, but there is quote unquote a normal size taint, and that is now changing.
How is there a normal size? How do people look at that?
Because all humans are the same.
Every finger,
there's a normal,
we all have different finger lengths.
There's a normal size taint for a man and a normal size taint for a woman, and they're different sizes.
How are they normal sizes when everything on our bodies are unique to us? And
not everything.
Our taints are the one thing that
no, I'm sure there's lots of things that are. I bet you eyeballs are all the same size for the most part. I'm sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I didn't listen to the podcast. I want to know.
It sounds like I didn't listen to the podcast either.
Fetishes with taints.
The thing that stuck out to me, because I found that fascinating, the idea that plastics are, because that's the other thing too, is they're in everything. It's no longer well, don't just use plastic Tupperware when you're microwaving your food, because we're just fucked no matter what, right? Yeah. It's in the environment at this point. They have those indigenous cultures that live on the outskirts of, the North Pole and things like that sustain themselves on fish and other wild game and everything like that. And they're totally living like they did, 2,000 years ago. And they have the chemicals in their body from plastics and things like that, even though they don't have any plastics there.
Because there's so much plastic in the ocean?
It's not just in the ocean, it's in the atmosphere.
How is it in the atmosphere?
So it goes up and then it eventually drops back down.
How?
Because it's not just, you have to extend your thought process. It's not just this plastic water bottle. Okay. It's used in everything.
I'm trying to figure out how it turned to an aerosol.
Because it's probably in aerosols. It's just insane how much.
So the tubing that would go down to load it, and maybe, I don't know. That's
the tubing, now that you mentioned tubing, that was another big issue that they had. So you have a premature baby that has to be on feeding tubes, plastic feeding tubes. Mm-hmm. And so it's literally feeding brand new premature babies this detrimental, terrible chemical that's making taints small.
Like that. It's also bottle-fed babies.
Right.
Sippy cups. They're not
I mean,
really
it's everywhere.
passing around.
As soon as you start
plastic.
looking for plastic, you'll realize that you're just fucked.
So diapers.
Plastic.
I heard a thing somewhere, and gosh, I'm not going to be able to. I probably shouldn't even mention it, but I'm gonna, because I wonder if it ties in. That they were wondering if disposable diapers are keeping too much heat in, because you know how like testes drop to stay cool, and they rise to warm up.
I'm familiar.
So they can maintain the health of the sperm.
I've seen a testy or two in my day.
So they were talking about the disposable diapers that are plastic and all that are holding it all in, keeping the body temperature there too warm and lowering the sperm count there. So if you take that with the heat and wrap it in plastic, some small taints that are going to happen. That's actually really scary.
It is scary. I mean, she had numbers and, you know, not speculations, but like scientific smart stuff that talked about, you know, like in the next 20 years, the next 30 years, how much more of an impact it's going to have on the population of this planet. And obviously there's ways to turn that around, right? We can just stop using plastics, but that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. But the whole reason I'm talking about this, because I listened to it and I found it fascinating. And then we tried to like alter some of our plastic use, which is just hard.
It's hard, but we're doing better.
We are doing better. And like at this point, obviously I don't care about my taint and I don't need to have a reproductive.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around. Like, I know I'm making jokes, but I don't understand how that's a signifier. Something of
that's significant at all.
Yeah, like what?
Well, think about the
connected?
significance of the reproductive system.
That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm trying to figure out how.
And so that would be like, quote unquote, like a healthy reproductive system would have this X number taint size. Yeah. And an unhealthy reproductive system would have a smaller taint.
I get the connection they're making. What I don't understand is how is there a connection between that? It's like saying you can tell by the length of my thumb whether or not I'm a fertile woman. You know, for lack of a better way. It doesn't make sense. Like maybe there is some weird thing there.
Is there nothing about the fact that it's like smack dab in the middle of your reproductive system? There,
but it doesn't have a role other than like
it's
separation.
From my understanding, obviously the taint is it doesn't necessarily have a role.
It's the middleman
in the sense, but during development and during like when babies are, you know, in mama's bellies being developed, that part obviously develops and the taint closes off. And I'm not going to be able to come up with an answer for your question. Other than
it'll be something that I look
important.
up. It's fascinating.
That was not an answer.
It was
in development of a baby during the process. The taint closes off and seals up the taint hole. So we originally have 3 holes there, but the taint hole is sealed up by the taint. Now, this is my thought about this whole thing. Okay. Are you ready? Because this is going to take us down a whole nother rabbit hole.
Okay. I'm still confused, but okay.
So your husband, this man that you love, sitting across from you.
Did you measure your taint?
I didn't.
Okay.
After that podcast I listened to, I almost had you measure my taint.
Yes.
All the time, not just on the podcast, but in our daily life, I talk an immense I spend an immense amount of time talking about balance, right? Yes. And kind of evening things out.
Okay.
And so I always think about the universe. Okay. And I think about how the universe is constantly in a state of balancing itself out. Okay. So then we come down from the universe to our planet. And back in the 40s and 50s, not to say that it's changed all that much, but back in the 40s and 50s, super masculine, patriarchal, is that the right word of?
Patriarchal?
Patriarch.
I think it's patriarchal or patriarch, not patriarchal, but I'm usually the one that gets the words wrong.
So it's a man's world full of like manly men, right? And
tights.
And what?
Manly
Tight-
men and tights. It's Robin Hood men in tights.
I remember.
Okay.
So the universe and this planet, just this planet specifically, is out of balance in regards to the masculine and feminine energy on this planet. And we're becoming super aware, in the last 20 years of how toxic it is and how terrible it is. And things are changing.
Okay.
So, universe is obviously super smart, right? And knows what it's doing. So I had this rabbit hole thought of because we somehow create plastics.
This is going to tie into plastics? I thought you went to another topic.
Are you ready?
Okay.
So we somehow create plastics, and it's this amazing invention that solves so many of the world's problems and makes life so much more convenient and easy and cheaper and everything, right? Mm-hmm. And the universe is like, please create your plastics, because that's wonderful. It's going to benefit so many people. It's actually going to save lives in a lot of ways, I'm sure. And then the universe is secretly behind the scenes like, create your plastics, because in doing so, you're going to take masculinity and you're going to lower the testosterone levels. So you're going to have less masculine men. You're going to have less because testosterone does a bunch of different stuff, obviously, right? It's super important for a bunch of different things. Okay. But real high levels of testosterone, you just get manly men. You get aggressive men sometimes, all these kind of different things. So if suddenly we start to affect testosterone levels and we start to affect sperm counts and we start to make men, quote unquote, even though this is a super big stereotype, but we start to make men less manly. And then we start to see the influx of the metrosexual men and men that are way more feminine in a sense and have more feminine energy. And you start to see some of that balance start to happen. So I think I've done a lot of research in my thought process of my brain that was the universe's way of balancing the masculine and feminine energy on this planet. Because it's not like we can just come out. We're trying to, right? We're trying to outwardly say, hey, we have to balance this because it's way out of balance and men are some men and the patriarchal. It's not patriarchal.
I know.
The man society that this world has existed as needs to change, right?
Okay.
So just kind of slides it in there under everybody's noses so that nobody's really paying attention. The universe feeds us plastics, fully knowing that it's going to shrink some taints and make men less manly, and which means they're going to be more open to feminine energy.
Okay.
This thought sounded way more deep in my head.
It's something. No, I'm listening. I'm like, that's quite a loop.
Doesn't it make sense on one level? Where the universe is trying to balance things out, right?
Yeah, I can see
So
that
it uses the
on one
opportunity of somebody coming up with plastic or coming up with this compound that's, shrinking taints and balls and testosterone in men to balance out the overabundance of masculinity that exists in this world. What do you think?
I don't know if that was, do you think, so you're saying it's behind the scenes, that's like end goal, full awareness, not I can see how that might be happening.
Yeah, it's not a happenstance.
Ooh, that's a happy surprise.
Yeah, because the universe is always, knows what it's doing.
So it decided plastics?
Yes.
Because yes, it saves lives, but it also is poisoning the lives that it saves to balance the system?
Yes.
Okay.
What do you think?
I hadn't thought of that. This is brand new thought.
Well, I like the idea that the universe is constantly trying to balance itself, right?
I can see it. And
how is it going to do that? How is it going to balance things out?
That's one way to do it, I guess.
Right?
That's one way.
I also think that there's just
Why do you think there was so much testosterone in the first place?
Maybe there was a time period where there was too much estrogen. Maybe there was a time period
no such thing
where women were in charge. Think about it.
I'm just so
maybe that's why we have so much masculine today. Because maybe there was a time period in the history of this planet when it was completely flipped, where women were basically the ones that ran everything.
What do you think that would look like?
Well,
and for one, why would it ever need to be flipped?
If we're going to just if we're just going to do a bunch of different thought experiments.
Curious, why not? We're here. We're on these thought experiments.
Yeah. I think that initially I would say, yes, please, let's just let women run everything.
Yeah.
Let's let them take over, because obviously men have done a terrible job. But I think if you run the course of like any single sex kind of being at the top, eventually it's going to become out of balance.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether or not it's masculine or feminine.
Yeah.
Eventually, like, I don't know what that would look like, right? I don't think it would look like what masculine energy looks like out of balance. I don't think suddenly it would be like war and power and, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. All
the different things that men typically do. But it might. But I think undoubtedly eventually it would become unhealthy. And so the true goal is finding a way to move forward with a blending of both of those energies equally. A give and take, right? An ebb and flow, an acknowledgement of what one side brings to the table versus the other side. That's part of the problem I have, is like, this episode is, we'll put a big caveat at the beginning of this episode.
Wait, what's the caveat?
The caveat is what we discussed during this episode, you cannot hold against us. This idea that everything, okay.
I gotta put this down. We're about to get serious. Okay.
Do I think that men and women are equal? Yes, I do.
Okay.
But I don't think that they're equal. I think there's things that women are better at than men, and vice versa. I think
Wouldn't that balance out then?
It would, right? But I think that's part of the problem that we're seeing today, is the idea that everything has to be so equal. And that until everything is equal, then we can't move forward. But the reality is we're not the same. The reality is men and women are different for a reason, right? Not just obvious reasons of reproduction and things like that. But you and I are a good example to some extent. In case this is the first time you've ever listened to this podcast, Stephanie identifies as a female and I identify as a male. We also are a good balance, right? I bring things to the table of our life that you don't have, and vice versa. You bring things to the table of our life that I don't have, and we work together to move through our life, right? So are we equal? Yes, we're equal in the sense that we're here together and we're in this together. But there's things that I do that you just can't. And that's not to say that you're weak or that you're less than. You just can't. And same thing applies. There's so many things that you do I just can't do. Now I can sit around and like get angry and frustrated and be upset with myself that I can't do the things that you do, or think that somehow that's a lack on my part, but it's not. It's just that we bring different things to the table. So I do think
that's not equal. That's just saying it's not the same.
That's what I'm saying, is like, I think it's equal. I think we're equal, right? The equality, I think, that needs to be acknowledged and recognized and implemented is this idea that we all have the same rights. We all, the fact is, we all get the same things. I'm not going to have more rights than you're going to have. What applies,
the same value, the same worth.
Yeah, what applies to me needs to apply to you as well. But then we can't go further than that. I think we can't go into this space where it's like, well, whatever a man does. A lot of what I'm talking about is I'm thinking about like jobs and in the workforce and all these different things, right? And it's like, whatever a man does, a woman should be able to do that as well. Now, if there is a woman that can do that, by all means, she has every right to do that. Nobody's stopping her. from doing that. Right now, there's some obviously circumstances where women are stopped. I'm not saying that. You're looking at me like, not only do you not agree, but you're like, you're full of shit. No, I'm trying to think of an example of like, I mean,
something a man does that a woman can't do.
Yeah.
Do you realize what kind of hole you're digging yourself?
I do. That's why we're going to
Okay.
put a big caveat at the
Okay.
beginning of the episode.
Okay.
That Craig digs a big hole, and tune in to find out if he gets out of it. Can you think of a field, a career field, a job that is typically done by a man?
That women don't do?
Typically. It's not to say they can't, or it's not to say that there aren't
they
any
haven't
women
been
doing
allowed
that.
to.
That's one way of putting it.
That they're pretty much all like, there's women in pretty much every field now.
Yes, there
I'm
is.
trying to think of one field where women aren't.
And that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm not saying find the one field where women aren't, right? What I'm saying is that there are fields of work. Like what keeps popping up in my head is thinking about like oil rigs and the, oil fields and out on the ocean, and that type of like really hard manual labor typically is done by men.
Okay.
Okay.
You're not saying there's not.
Correct. I'm
Women
not
out
saying there
there.
aren't women out there. And I'm not saying that
And women aren't there that are out there aren't kicking complete ass.
Yeah, I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying they have all the rights in the world to be out there.
They're surrounded by men.
They can
more.
do that job just as good, if not better than men. All of these things. I'm not saying any of the like other side of that.
Okay.
They very much are there. They need to be there. They have the
Just
same
man-dominated.
equal rights. But that's a field that's dominated by men
Yes,
because
there's
men
lots of
are
fields that
better at that job
Okay.
because men are stronger
In
general.
like not as a whole,
Correct.
because there's a lot of women that can take a lot of guys out
I'm not saying
that are like really strong. So I'm just making sure, clarifying. You're not saying like men are better than women. 'Cause
Definitely
it might
not.
kind of come off.
That's totally not obviously what I'm saying.
I know, obviously, but maybe we can just go into that a little bit.
No. The idea is, I think this whole equal rights thing
10 guys, 10 girls.
gets stuck in that
something like-
space
Okay.
where it's not to say just women, but the idea that we're going to pretend like we're equal. Totally not, right?
Equal? Yes,
talking
we are equal. Maybe not the same, but yeah.
there. So,
Fucking equality. I'm gonna
baby,
go for
I'm
that.
not disputing equality. This is not the argument that I'm
Okay.
trying to have.
I figure that.
Okay,
But still, here we are.
If we take that word equal
Mm-hmm.
and separate two different definitions of it, you and I are equal. Okay,
But we are not the same.
but we are not the same. So we have all the same rights.
Okay, so
We
like
respect
our
each other.
strengths don't match. Our
You and I were equal partners in this relationship of our life.
yeah, but you think you're the boss.
And that's how it should be, right? Not that I
you
think I'm
haven't
the
laughed
boss.
at any of my jokes.
I'm
it's
trying to get
starting
this point
hurt
across,
my
and I feel like I'm
feelings.
doing a terrible job, and I
Maybe
don't
if-
want to be painted as a
Maybe if we
fucking
were more equal,
woman-hating
you would
asshole.
I'm not painting anything here. You're the one that's
I know.
painting.
I'm trying to remedy
Okay,
that.
you're doing a good job.
So the
You're
whole
not-
idea is, I think we just have to stop pretending that we're the same. There's things that men are much more suited to excel at than women are. And it's not just in the workforce. It's not just jobs and careers and things like that, right? It's the same thing that applies on the small scale in our little relationship here in our life. There's certain things that I'm just going to be better at than you, and there's certain things that you're just better at than me. So why are we getting... I mean, it would be so silly if we sat and got frustrated and would be like, no, I should be able to do that. Well, you can do that. Nobody's stopping you from doing that. But then, like, you can't really do that thing. Do you know what I mean?
No, I love you so much, but I think we're about to have a fight.
Let's do it.
Okay. So
Let's fight on the podcast.
the part of this,
I just got back from jiu-jitsu, by the way, so I don't know if you
Yeah.
want to fight with this guy.
Oh, I'm ready.
Let's
The
hear
part
it.
of this conversation that I'm kind of having a hard time with,
Okay.
because you're like, no, I'm not saying that, and I love you so much, but no buts. I love you. I'm gonna call you out, but I love you.
I love you so much, but...
Everything.
Do I?
every reference that you've been given is men are stronger, men are better at it, men are this, and of course women, of course, but men, we're just not equal. But of course there's women that can do it. You are starting off as everything in your definitions, or men are just stronger and better at it. But yeah, there are some jobs that women can't fit into that. So you're catering wholeheartedly to men being in power and women trying to pretend they're equal. So that's like kind of how, like, that's...
Is that how it's coming off from
a little bit, because
from where you're sitting?
I know that that's not where you're at, but all your reference points are pointing at that. And so I'm over here like, we're going to shine a light on that right now. Let's talk about that.
Well, let's think about, I don't want to limit this to just kind of like the career field and jobs and things like that. That's just like the easiest thing for my brain to process right now. But there are such distinct differences between men and women that I think should be like respected and valued and honored and appreciated. Mm-hmm. And there's so many things that women obviously haven't been appreciated for, right? So many qualities that women have that have been just fucking raked over the coals, you know? Like, I mean, women are more emotional than men are. It's not all women. Yes, there's men that are emotional. All those caveats apply, but typically speaking, they're more emotional. And that's a beautiful quality. And that is something that everybody needs more of. But even women have been taught that their emotions are things that they too have to hide and that they have to stuff down. And that's an example of like, it's not to say that suddenly we have to go to this opposite end of the spectrum from where we're at today. We have to find that way to balance those two things, right? It's not to say that women can be overly emotional. Of course they can. Everybody can, men and women both. But it's like, how do we incorporate the beauty of what women bring to the table in regards to that, instead of bastardizing it, and that's not the right word, but instead of making it a weakness, and it's something that we try to avoid. That's something that should be implemented like immediately across the board in the work field, in teaching schools, you know, all relationships. It should just instantly be implemented across the board everywhere, because that's a good spot where everything is really, really out of balance. So we need to bring more emotion into the world, more emotion into people, more emotion into relationships, and all these type of things. And that's an area that women excel at. Now, there's lots of areas like that. So my idea is we are all equal 100%, right? There's nobody at the top. There's nobody better than. If everybody was sitting at the table, the men don't get to eat first. The men don't get more food than the women get. Everybody is equal. We all have a right to be there, right? Just simply by being alive. It doesn't matter, man, woman, it doesn't matter how you identify, just a human. That equality is important and necessary, and we don't have that right now, and that is something that needs to change as well. But I believe that humans have the capacity to do more things, like more than just one thing at a time. And so in the meantime, while we're fighting for equality in regards to that, where everybody gets an equal seat at the table, we don't need to take that same fight and that same stance in regards to some other aspects of men and women. Equality, meaning everybody at the table getting the same amount, doesn't mean that we still can't acknowledge that in order for this thing to work, we need the traits that women have and we need the traits that men have, and they need to be brought forth together. And yes, there's women that have masculine traits and there's men that have feminine, all those things apply. But it's the big generality, right? It needs to be a blending of not just, well, men have been at the top for so long, let's go ahead and put women at the top now. No, let's everybody be at the same spot and we're all equal and we all get the same rights. And now let's actually come together and work through all of these problems, because all the problems that we face in society have been created by men. Okay. Now, yes, women have played a role, but they have been created by men, and all the solutions to those problems have come from men. That to me, obviously, is a really fucking stupid way to move through life, where it's like, well, I created this problem. I'm going to get us out of it. How about we ask somebody else? Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's probably time that we say, hey, ladies, we got some problems facing this planet. What do you guys think we should do? Let's come together and figure this out instead of just a bunch of men solving these problems. I don't know where we're at with this. I'm pretty sure we were talking about taints and plastic a while ago.
Right. Universe and balance and
yeah.
the.
What do you think, babe?
I think you did a better job explaining it.
Okay.
After that little thing.
So I didn't come off as so much of an ass?
I wasn't saying you're coming off as an ass. I was just bringing some light on the focal points. I think you were funny there at the end.
Thanks. There was a funny part at the end.
Yeah, I liked her all come together. There was another funny part, but my brain is gone.
Where did it go?
I have lost it. I'm mad because the topic's gone.
Oh no.
Yeah. You went over a lot of things, and so I'm like, well, I'll hit on that, and then.
Can you think of another?
Maybe elevated.
You're definitely elevated. Elevated is our code word.
No.
We're not telling the listeners?
Should know.
I think it's pretty obvious. Can you think of something else that the universe has done to balance things?
No, because
like
I'm
my
trying
plastic
to remember the
analogy.
last thing that I just said. Or the
last thing that I just said?
Yeah.
What did I just say?
So no, I can't think of a whole other universal question because the conversation where we were at 2 minutes ago is already left.
Okay.
You were getting very like almost it's almost there. In a way that you were thinking, like the issue that I had, okay, it's back, is that you were bringing it down to kind of like man bashing in this way, where I brought attention at first to how you were like putting men first, and you're like, men have fucked it up, and then men think, and it's that's not where the balance is. It's not looking where they're in charge of everything and they're the strongest of everything to then say, well, now they have to be at fault for everything. Like that's not the balance. That's not bringing everybody to the table. So just because you were,
but that's the case.
I'm not saying that they have to take a fall. I'm saying give women this, not give because you can't give it to us when we have it, but allow the conversation to also take place when women have the lead. So it doesn't have to be men are good or men are bad to balance it out. It just has to be like you said, everybody coming to the table. So you don't have to like bring it down to level it out. It's just like space.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I'm doing a bad job.
You know, you did a great job. Obviously, I'm not trying to bash on men.
Yeah.
But I just look at.
Is that like a reaction though? Almost, you're like, no, I'm not.
I just think it's the reality. I think that, you know, all the world's problems that we're facing today are ones that men caused because men have been the ones in charge. Men have been the ones that have had the ideas to do this, that, or the other because they're the ones that can implement those ideas. Right? So it's like, looks like they have really fucked things up.
Yeah.
And if we would have just simply all sat down and discussed these problems over time, then we probably would have figured things out. Yeah. This question, so that topic, that idea of like men have made the decisions and blah, 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 so on and so forth, right? That's been the way for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
What role do you think sex and reproduction has to do in that? So if that's the outcome and that's the thing and men are, you know, quote unquote, in power, what role do you think? Because think about, I'm always going back to caveman days, right? And I'm thinking about us as caveman and woman, Yomi, and Crag and Stuff.
Oh, I was like, what?
Those are our caveman names. Crav and Stuff. Crag. I'm Crag. Crag and Stuff. So then when I wake up and there was Stuff, and you know, Crag.
Oh my God.
Anyways, I'm always thinking about
I'm doing that in the morning.
the humans from those time period because I still think that we're basically that.
Okay.
So what role does reproduction have to do in regards to the patriarchy today? And go.
I'm trying to understand what you said.
I thought I made perfect sense.
You might have, but my brain's like having a hard time keeping up with you right now. Just because, not because it's a lady brain. My lady brain is smart. My elevated brain is a little slower on the take.
Because I think that is the main driving factor behind.
Is reproductive?
Yeah.
I guess, is it because men can reproduce more frequently than women? Because they can just like spread the seed.
I think because it's not just
bound to gestations.
No, because it's. I think about the dominance and the power involved in the animal kingdom when it comes to sex, and when it comes to reproduction, right? And
because males have been more aggressive.
Yeah. So
sexually aggressive.
I mean, not only sexually aggressive.
Females are more
I know
sexually
there
aggressive.
are some outliers, right? There are some animal species where it's different.
Did you know that homosexuality in the animal kingdom is actually very, very common as well?
Yes. Anyways, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about.
You're also talking about male, female, and there are some species that can.
Go ahead.
I can't remember what it's called.
Switch, go back and forth.
No. I think that frogs can do that, amphibians, but I'm talking about mammals.
Okay.
There was, no, because that's aviary. Chickens have done it. I'm going to have to go find the topic and come back to it because it's actually very interesting. If you look on your phone right now,
this podcast is going to be on hold for the next 20 minutes.
That's where the information is.
You're going to get squirreled on fucking Facebook.
I have to go like ostriches.
And then you're going to be like, oh, here's another TikTok I like. And then you'd be like, what am I looking up?
Okay, fine. I won't say my important thing because we don't have time to wait for a woman.
Maybe that's what happened.
What?
Is like way back in the day, it was super balanced.
I think I might kick you under the table here in a minute.
Everywhere we went, everybody got an equal seat at the table. Everybody acknowledged, I bring this, you bring that. It's this perfect harmony. And then eventually it was just like, oh my God, Linda, we totally have to go already. And Linda takes her sweet ass time. So maybe man was just like, fuck this, let's go. No?
Craig's phone number, if you want to reach out, is 801.
So back to sex.
Okay.
I think that has been the driving force behind the masculine ran world that we live in today.
Is sex.
Mm-hmm. And not just sex.
Okay.
Right? Sex is like, because, I mean, humans have sex.
You're talking about fornication?
No, I'm talking about reproduction.
Okay.
I'm talking about that act of reproduction.
Okay.
Because there's
women should be the bosses then.
They should, right?
I mean, fuck.
But the fact
Let me
is,
tell you a story.
I mean, typically speaking, and it's the same thing with human women. You basically, what is it called? Ovulate. You basically have a season.
Keep mansplaining it to me. Tell me about my season.
Let me tell you about your period. But I'm like, just like in the animal kingdom where, like
where
deer.
It's called in heat?
Yeah. Like deer go into sex time. And women go into sex time as well.
Okay.
But it's not sex time, it's reproductive time. And so every
not
month.
For me.
Every
I want
month.
Sex, no reproduction.
Am
I in anomaly?
No.
No trouble.
I just think that production or reproduction is a driving force of why men control things.
I don't understand why. For the reproductive. Oh, are you talking about the strongest breed they're trying to? So,
exactly.
Like that's why the alphas come in?
Yeah.
So they have to be strong so the breed is strong and carries on?
Yeah. And then I pass on my strong genes.
Okay.
Right? So then that just becomes about power and competition. Because men fighting for women.
Or the females are more attracted to the stronger dominant genes.
Correct. Because they're going to have healthier, stronger babies.
babies.
So it's all about
the
reproduction.
Okay.
And that competition that ensues between men for women is kind of the root of the problem. Think about it.
I'm trying to think.
You
right
got
now.
two.
I hate that we're having this conversation where you're trying to show that men are superior while I'm elevated as fuck. And I'm like,
not.
I'm representing all women right now. And I'm doing it high.
I'm not.
Fuck.
I'm not.
Sorry. I'm sorry, my female identifying people. I'm failing.
I'm not saying men are at the top.
And you chose to do it now because you're like,
that's not what I'm saying, though.
Stupid.
If anybody sounds stupid, it's the guy that's trying to talk about plastics and taints.
It's me that I'm like, how does reproduction affect? Like,
yeah, I'm not saying men are at the top. I'm saying over the course of history, right? Mm-hmm. We're in the world that we're in because men have competed with other men for the reproductive right to, yeah.
Of the lovely juicy labia.
And sorry. And then women,
I am elevated. We need to stop.
And then women are just at the mercy.
Yes.
And that sucks.
Well, yes.
So the acknowledgement of what women bring to the table is massively important. How can we... Oh, God. No, I can't answer any more questions. You can't answer any more questions?
How can we what?
How are you more elevated than me?
Because about an hour and a half before you did.
And you did a smaller amount.
I always do a smaller amount. Is this where man's better because he can do a bigger amount than my little ass? Even though I don't have a little ass, I have a big ass. I can just sound a little amounts.
No.
Was that a little too aggressive?
No.
Did I get too emotional for you? I'm sorry.
No.
I know. I'm teasing. Kind of. A little bit. Little passive aggressive, but mostly teasing.
It's a lot of passive aggressive.
It's a little passive aggressive. A little bit.
It's a lot of
bit. A lot of bit of joking. Little bit of truth.
95%
sneaking that truth in there a little bit. No,
5% joking.
It's the opposite. Not quite 95.5.
Did you have anything else on your podcast list?
No.
You didn't have anything?
Not right now, baby. Did you put stuff on my podcast list?
I didn't put
all the stuff. I need to just like scratch out all of this because all the stuff that I had on there that I wanted to talk about just does
Did we already talk about it?
It's either we've talked about it or
we're not going to. Yes.
Oh, I did come across something.
Let's hear it.
But it doesn't really fit to this.
That's what she said.
I'm just laughing at the last line.
Read it.
So it does talk about patriarchy. So I said Bible, even though not real, is given power by believers. It's based off of patriarchy, which is where the powers go, which is why the world is fucked up. Also, if this is stupid, remember I was high. That's my note.
That's totally what we're going to talk about right now. The idea that you had for the podcast on an episode idea that came to you when we were high, and now we're high once again to discuss. And
this is when I find it.
That's
I'm like,
perfect.
And it doesn't make sense. I was like, oh.
No, read it again.
Bible, and then
hold
in
on,
parentheses,
like you have to. Okay, this
even
is the
though
definition
not
of the
real.
Okay.
And then it's given power by believers. So
yes.
My theory of that is like, it's not like, because why does the Bible have like power?
The power that
like,
it does.
Right. And they're doing things. It's because like when you put faith in like, not a religious thing, but when your belief, your faith, whatever, into an object and you give it power, think of all the people in the world that believe in it. So all the people come together giving nothing power.
So you're thinking from like that.
So it's given power by
metaphysical aspect of it. Kind of like the Ouija board.
Okay, yes. Well, I don't know. I don't know about that one.
See, you believe.
I don't know about that.
Because you just said believers give the Bible power.
Yes.
You believe that Ouija boards are bad. So you give it
I believe that they open up things. And I believe that not just anybody.
We should get one for the podcast.
No. Fuck no. I believe that I believe that not just anybody.
I believe it's a fucking
with them.
Piece of cardboard.
Yeah. I believe they have power, and I believe they are channels and portals and things can be open. I believe you should know what the fuck you're doing. And not be...
Does that power come from believers?
I don't know.
Just like the Bible has power.
It might. Okay. But then I said it's based off of patriarchy, which is where the power goes. So yes. So it is about, remember...
Based off the patriarchy.
Yeah. It's the man building, the female shaming, the entire time.
Oh, the entire Bible. Yeah.
It's just all about like... men.
Yeah.
Follow your men. Honor your men. All of that. So they're bringing the power into that, which is keeping men in charge because of this book that has power by believers that is nothing more than promoting.
Okay.
And then caveat at the end, or like summary, is which is why the world is fucked up. So all of it to there. So that's what I meant. And then realized that if it was jumbly, it was okay because it was.
So the world's fucked up because of the Bible or because of the patriarchy?
Both.
Okay. There's so many things that I think about sometimes where it kind of plays into what you're talking about, where we believe certain things. I was teasing you.
You're teasing me?
I think it was today. Maybe it was yesterday.
Help me out.
When the lightning
Oh my God.
struck.
Cause yeah.
Lightning crash. We had a lightning strike real close to our house yesterday.
Lit up. The
like
power
enough
went,
that it shut down all the power. It shut down our cell phones. We saw the bright
on the middle
flash.
of a phone call. Super bright flash. All the windows.
And
really loud.
You said, "Oh, it's a good thing I wasn't on the house phone."
Yeah, because I'm smart.
And that's an example of something that's not true.
I think that is true.
And anyways.
Okay, Google.
Yeah, I'm going to enjoy this.
Why is it not working?
Yeah, this will be fun.
You just wait for a second.
It's like when Asher asks Alexa a super complicated question.
Shut up. I'm going to be able to pull it off.
Alexa.
No, be quiet.
What is the name of...
You just set off. If anybody's listened to this in their house, you just set their thing off. Alexa, end. There you go. I got you.
Alexa. Energy.
Stop. Oh, yeah. Do it.
Subscribe.
Okay, hold on. I got to remember my question. No. Let me just think for a second.
Go.
Just a second. Has lightning traveled through house phones and killed anyone?
Here's a summary from the New York Times. A bolt of lightning that strikes a telephone line can cause an electrical surge to shoot through the wires and enter a handset. Cases of customers being jolted while on the phone in a storm are well documented. A few have even died.
Bam. Fact. It is fact, Craig. It is fact.
Anyways.
It is fact.
Let's go back to your Bible.
Acknowledge. Yeah. Because making fun
Bible.
of me over facts.
Let's go back to your Bible.
Why? It's not my Bible.
You said it has power because of believers.
Because of believers. Like when you believe in something, you put your intent into something.
Yeah, your energy into it. And it brings that thing alive, right? And then it makes that thing not just powerful, but it just...
And is it actual power? Is there energy that has come through it because of all that belief? Or is it only powerful to the individual? Like, what do you
believe
think?
In the power of prayer?
I believe in the power of using your heart to speak out and what can come of that. And I do believe in the power of many people using their hearts to speak out and what can come of that. So do I believe in the power of, I guess that's the same as praying. I just don't get down on my knees and, oh, Heavenly Father, that's just not what I do. But,
you get down on your knees sometimes though.
Okay. That's what we're going to do right
now. I get so tired of social media posts that constantly are asking for prayers for this, that, or the other. And
I give them.
I know.
I send my thoughts.
Maybe I'm just a jerk.
Time. Maybe.
Because I believe that, maybe when I asked you the question about prayer, I don't believe in prayer in the definition of like prayer, but obviously I full-heartedly believe in like the power of energy.
See?
And so
same thing.
It is the same thing.
People just call it prayer. I think they're...
Yeah.
Like Asher has some good questions. He was leaning over, is like, why did they think Jesus was white? I mean, if he is a real person, why would he be white?
Yeah. Well, what else do we give power to that
everything.
Really has no power?
Social media.
Money.
Oh my gosh. Money's the biggest. Yeah.
Money's bigger than the Bible.
Yeah, I guess so. Just ask the churches.
all the power that is placed into money and the importance and significance of said money when it's not really anything
It's not really
anymore.
anything. It's a false perception of something they identified and said, this has value.
Right?
If you have a lot of these, you are worthy.
Yeah, it's not even a physical item anymore. You know?
No, it still is.
Yeah, but it's really not.
You have $8 in your wallet. That's physical.
I'm talking about in the greater sense.
In the greater
it's all
sense.
ones and zeros.
Everything is digitized.
Yeah.
It is all ones and
And
zeros.
if all that stuff that was like digitized and the database and the storage of all of that information and the ability for us to access all of that information, if that all vanished tomorrow because of some solar flare or terrorist internet attack or
all the happy things.
all the things that could possibly wipe out the electric grid and no longer have access to all the information that is stored digitally on this planet, including our bank account information and or debt.
Okay.
What if that was gone and we had no way of recovering it?
Okay.
What do you think would happen? Because now money's gone.
Think
The
there'd be
millionaire that had $10 million in the bank, that's gone. He can't go to the bank and say, give me my $10 million. Bank would be like, oh, it shows here the balance is zero. Sorry, fucker.
I feel like they'd still find a way for bills, though.
They would, right?
They'd be like,
all of
"Sorry
our
about
credit
your money.
card debt
You
that
owe
we
us all your-"
have,
Yeah.
they, you know, but if they had no way of knowing that information, because it's not like we have, so we have
They
a
would
couple
say,
of credit
they would
cards.
pull out their paper ledgers and be like,
That's the thing. They don't have a paper ledger anymore. It's not like
You
somebody
don't know
would
that
go
they
to a
don't.
filing cabinet and pull up
They
the
might.
Salazar account and get all
might.
of our information that's saved
I
on a
used to keep a
actual
paper
piece
ledger.
of paper. So the
might.
credit card company does not have that information
don't.
stored that way. All of their
Are you
information is
saying that
stored
they
digitally.
would be honest? Because they wouldn't. They'd be like,
The
turns out
question-
we've been keeping paper.
The question was,
What?
that's what it turns out all along.
You owe this.
They misspell your name. No, the question was, what do you think would happen if suddenly, not that we just misplaced the power that we put in money, but if money disappeared and we had no way of accessing it anymore? What do you think would happen?
I would really, really like to think that we would just work our way into like a...
Think about
community.
how much of a... Go ahead.
Do I get to finish with the question you asked me?
Yes.
Okay. So I would like to think... God, you're distracting me so
Sorry.
hard.
It's so
Oh my
hard
goodness.
not to talk right now.
You asked me the question.
I know.
Oh fuck, you're making me okay. I would like to think that we would all be like community and trade and borrow and just everything on what I have, you have, and working together like that, because money doesn't matter. So there's not the wealth, there's not the significance, there's not any of that. But I don't think that's what the case would be. I think there would be a panic, and I don't know. I don't want to put that out there. I think that the powers that be would find the new money system quickly. I think it would be immediately replaced.
There'd be no way to replace it.
Like the new system beginning right here. Now, this is money. I have this. And somebody is going to have the value. They're going to play that. It's going to carry down. They're going to tell somebody else that this is what they need. It's going to go. It'll be another MLM. That's what Bitcoin is.
That's another pyramid scheme.
That's what okay. Now what were you going to say? Because I couldn't keep my thoughts straight and she kept interrupting. So now what are yours?
Can you imagine the impact that the loss of basically not necessarily, I was going to say electricity.
You interrupted yourself.
I did.
That was cute.
Yeah, like the loss of technology and electricity.
I didn't realize we were also losing electricity.
Well,
I thought you said it was just erased.
Okay, I guess we can keep it. We'll keep electricity.
Did I misunderstand?
I probably misunderstood my own question. But think about how big of an impact that would have.
I think it would be a big impact, yes.
Where suddenly we can't, not just find our money, because money doesn't exist other than in imaginary digital data banks.
Why are you trying to make my brain work when elevated? You know
Right?
this is supposed to be a fun episode.
I know. It was a fun episode.
It was, but there's a lot of questions that I'm supposed to have really good answers for, and I can't.
Yeah. That's okay.
No, give me your cards now.
No, we're all done.
No, let me see your cards. Hey.
Yes. There you
Remember,
go.
we're equal. Just not the same. It's my turn for the cards.
What are you going to do?
Play them.
Okay. I think you should probably realize that.
What?
What? Oh, fuck.
I should probably realize what?
When I play with him, it's much quieter.
Yeah? I'm sorry, we are not the same. Isn't this what this whole podcast has been about? How different we are? Am I not doing it the same as you?
You're cute. You're so cute. Okay, let's wrap up.
Okay.
Go to ENERGYISLOVEPodcast.com, please.
Thank you.
And when you're there,
Check
look
out
at all the
Craig's
things.
cards.
My cards aren't on
In
that
Steph's
website.
hands. They are now.
Check out all the things. There's a new way to follow the podcast on iTunes. I think it's just follow it. Don't look at me like that. And I don't know what else to say other than thank you so much for listening. And tell somebody about the podcast. Next week won't be elevated. Maybe.
Maybe.
It's a mystery.
Have some better notes at least. No.